Okay, so let's get into something that sounds a little bit like science fiction, but is absolutely real. We tend to think that our health is all about our own choices and the DNA we got from our parents, right? But what if I told you that the life your grandfather lived, what he ate, what he did, long before you were even born, could be shaping your health right now? Well, it can. And we're about to unpack the incredible science of how a person's life can literally echo down through generations. So let's just start with a really specific, kind of crazy question. Could the fact that your grandfather smoked as a young boy actually make you more likely to have asthma today? I know, it sounds impossible, but the answer is yeah, it kind of can. And we're going to find out exactly how that works. So, to find the first clues for this incredible story, we're not starting in some high tech futuristic lab. Nope, we're actually going back in time to a truly dark period in history that totally unexpectedly left behind a treasure trove of scientific data. Okay, picture this. It's World War II, and a terrible famine called the Hunger Winter hits the Netherlands. It was awful. But decades later, scientists started noticing something really strange. The children who were conceived during that famine, as adults, they had way higher rates of things like heart disease and diabetes. But here's the truly mind-blowing part. It didn't stop there. Even their kids, the grandchildren of the survivors, showed clear health differences. It was like the ghost of that famine was reaching across time. This just didn't make sense with what we knew about genetics. The basic DNA code, the letters A, T, C, and G, hadn't changed. So how on earth could the effects of starvation ripple through 2 generations? It led to this incredible conclusion. Something else was being inherited. Not just genes, but a kind of biological memory of what their ancestors went through. So, what in the world is this biological memory? Well, it's not just a cool phrase. It's a real field of science, and honestly, it has completely changed how we think about heredity. And that field is called epigenetics. The name sounds complex, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward. Epi just means on top of. So it's the layer of instructions on top of our genetics. It's how things we do and things that happen to us, like diet, stress, or exposure to toxins, can add little notes to our DNA. These notes don't change the DNA sequence itself, but they tell our genes when to turn on or when to shut off. You know, the best way to think about it is like this. Imagine your genetics, your DNA, is the permanent architectural blueprint for a house. It's set in stone. Well, epigenetics is like the little pencil notes the builder writes in the margins. Hey, let's add a dimmer switch here, or use a different kind of wood for this floor. The blueprint doesn't change, but how it gets interpreted does. And crucially, those pencil marks can be changed or even erased. So it pretty much works like a 3-step process. First, something happens in the environment. It could be a famine, it could be chronic stress, it could be smoking. Second, that experience causes these tiny little chemical tags to literally get stuck onto your DNA, acting like light switches. And third, those switches then change how active a gene is, turning it up, turning it down, which can change how your body works. And if this happens in sperm or egg cells, those instructions can be passed on. Now, these epigenetic changes are happening in all of us all the time. But for scientists trying to figure this all out, they've become really focused on the father's side of the family tree, and there's a super practical reason for that. As Professor Anita Ost explains, it's not that the father's contribution is more important, it's that it's just cleaner to study. Think about it. A mother's influence is constant throughout pregnancy, so it's hard to separate one factor from another. But the father? The sperm delivers its package of DNA and these epigenetic notes, and then its job is done. It's a single, clear snapshot in time. It makes it way easier for researchers to draw a straight line from a father's experience to a child's health. And the evidence for this is everywhere, not just in people. Seriously, look at this. In fruit flies, what a dad eats can mess with his kid's metabolism. In mice, if a father gets an infection, he can pass down a stronger immunity to his sons and even his grandsons. This shows us that it's not some random human fluke. This is a deep, ancient biological system that evolution has been using for a long, long time. But here's a huge twist, and it's really important to get this. These inherited traits aren't simply good or bad. It is all about the environment. So, for example, some research suggests that if your ancestors were exposed to a lot of tuberculosis, you might inherit a sort of hyperactive immune system. A few hundred years ago, that could have saved your ancestor's life. But today, in our super clean modern world, that same hyperactive immune system might just give you asthma. What was a survival advantage in one context becomes a health risk in another. Okay, so this brings us to a really, really important point. Because when you hear all this, it's easy to start feeling like you're just a product of your ancestors' choices, right? Like it's all predetermined. But that is absolutely not the right way to think about this. This is not about fate, it's about influence. And we're learning that there are certain times in life that are especially sensitive, where those epigenetic pencil marks are made more easily. For guys, one of the most critical windows seems to be those pre-teen years, right before puberty, when their future sperm cells are developing. What happens then seems to leave a particularly strong mark. And this isn't just a theory. A massive Norwegian study found a crystal clear connection. They looked at fathers who started smoking before they hit puberty, and guess what? Their kids had a much higher risk of developing asthma. That's a direct line from a lifestyle choice during a specific window of time to a health outcome in the next generation. It's wild. So please, let's get this distinction clear. The old idea of genetic determinism, that your DNA is your destiny and you can't do anything about it, is just plain wrong. Epigenetics doesn't guarantee anything. It just changes the odds. Your grandpa's choices might increase your risk for something, but it is never a guarantee. It's an influence, not a command. And that leads us to the absolute best part of this whole story. Because if these epigenetic marks are written in pencil and not in permanent ink, well, what can you do with pencil marks? You can change them, you can rewrite them. And this is exactly what scientists are seeing. As Professor Maria Lerm says, sure, some of these changes are pretty stable, but others, they are very, very dynamic. That's science speak for they can change, and sometimes they can change surprisingly fast. Get this, scientists can now look at the epigenetic patterns on your DNA and calculate your biological age, which can be different from your actual age. But the most exciting discovery is that you can actively lower it. So while the number of candles on your birthday cake always goes up, your biological age can actually go down. So what are the tools you can use to start rewriting your story? What are the erasers? Well, it's probably not going to surprise you. It's the stuff we all kind of know we should be doing. Eating better, exercising, managing stress, quitting smoking. But now you can see these choices in a whole new light. They're not just about feeling good today. They are you, right now, actively editing your own biological instruction manual for the better. At the end of the day, all of this science tells us one profound thing. You are not just a passive recipient of your family's history. You're an active author of your own biological story, and you're even contributing to the story of generations that might come after you. Your choices matter deeply. So the real question is, what kind of legacy are you going to write?